Josh Appel is joining us here today on the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Shop hundreds of Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. As we talk a little Panthers here, by the way, Finals Frenzy, the place to get geared up is Caneswear in Davie. Panthers are going to be home on Thursday night. You want to get into the spirit? Go to Caneswear in Davie. They're on University Drive, or you can shop online at caneswear.com. Josh Appel is the public address announcer for the Miami Marlins at Lone Depot Park. Now, he's also a play-by-play broadcaster nationally on NFL games for Sports USA. And I had mentioned it to Solana. To be quite honest, this time of year, we'd probably thought we'd be complaining about the Marlins, but instead we've got Panthers and Heat to talk about, and we wouldn't be complaining about the Marlins because they're having a great season. And Luis Arraez is everything that he was promised to be. You got to be feeling a little good there at the Lone Depot Park, Appel.
Yeah, it just kind of irks me when Solana tries to misrepresent how well the Marlins are playing by saying they're 3 games over 500, trying to really downplay it for the masses. It's really bothersome.
5 games over 500.
They're 5 games over 500. It's like their
deal.
third. Yeah, it's their third best start in franchise history. I mean,
listen. Hopefully they can maintain this, and we can actually talk about them come the end of June and July and August. They are putting together a decent season.
They're just a scrappy little team, and this is without Jazz Chisholm Jr. for the majority of this. And Sandy Alcantara has had just a very odd season so far, and he hasn't been at his best. So there are still things that...
You know what's funny? After what we saw last season, Sandy Alcantara in his last start gets bailed out by bats.
Yeah.
and after a poor performance, how many performances last season did he not get a single run?
Right. He was near the bottom of the league in run support last year. But what was crazy about Sandy's last start is he faced the minimum in the other 6 innings that he pitched. It was the 1 inning, and it was a wild inning. And that's kind of been his issue in this last string of starts, where he looks like Sandy of old and has just 1, maybe 2 bad blow-up innings that kind of overshadow everything else. But, he shaved his beard, so obviously that should help going forward in his next start. No, Sandy will be fine. I mean, you got to trust him to get better, and hopefully when Jazz comes back, he starts to play well. But the guys who they've brought in to replace him have played well. Bottom third of the order starting to hit. I mean, this is a fun team. It's a fun team. I'll tell you what. Fun team.
Appel has been our go-to Panthers guy. He'll join us at FLA Live Arena on Thursday. They got smoked last night. So what happened? I know you're unhappy with the officiating. A lot of Panthers fans are. But what happened last night?
So let's start there because you mentioned it. The Panthers last night did not lose because of the officiating. You don't lose a game 7-2 because the officiating was poor. That also does not mean that the officiating was good. The amount of Goldie touched on it on the Bally Sports postgame show last night. Like, it's the Stanley Cup Final. Like, what are we doing with all these misconducts? I'm still wondering why Matthew Tkachuk got one in the second period. The one late, probably to me, isn't something that should warrant a game misconduct, but if you're trying to keep it under control with less than 10 minutes to go in a 5-goal game, okay, I could see maybe the rationale for that. But after the hit on Jack Eichel in the second period, and then he gets jumped from behind after that, and he gets 2 minutes and a 10, like, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. There was no penalty call on Radko Gudas on the hit that knocked him out of the game. Hopefully he's able to play in this series, but the contact at the head and then the contact with his head on the ice did not look very good. Aiden Hill, for the second straight game, gets away with a slash on one of the Panther players. Yeah, some real funny business. Yeah, it was a weird game from that standpoint, but the Panthers just flat out have to be better. This is not like in the second round against Tampa last year, where Sergei Bobrovsky played very well in that sweep. The Panthers just couldn't solve anything else on the other end. Like last night, from top to bottom, was not a good performance. And you can say, they got to play better in front of Bobrovsky, and they do. They absolutely do. I mean, they were, even in front of Lyon, there were some massive breakdowns defensively. But as great as Bob was, that does earn him benefit of the doubt, obviously. But if this team is going to come back or if this team is going to win this series, flat out, he just has to play better than he has in these first two games. Everybody's talking about, he's getting screened. He's not the only goalie that's had to fight through screens to make a stop. Like, yeah, it makes it more difficult, but they're getting the saves on the other end. Like, Aiden Hill has been phenomenal for Vegas. And obviously, you score 12 goals in 2 games. You can't just say, it's the goaltender. But, I mean, how many momentum-stifling saves has Aiden Hill made in the 2 games so far? The game started yesterday with Carter Verhaeghe getting stopped on a breakaway. Obviously, the save against Nick Cousins in game 1. I felt a lot better after game 1 because I said, it was 2-2 going into the third, couple of bounces in the third period. Obviously, Aiden Hill was great. Didn't have a problem with the Panthers game for the most part in game 1. Figured they got that out of their system. Game 2, they'd come back ready to play because guess what? They haven't lost back-to-back games in this playoff run since the first round series against Boston. Last night was really disappointing in that regard. They just looked outclassed. And, missing Eetu Luostarinen is a big piece to not have in the lineup. But that shouldn't cause this avalanche of a drop in play for the entire lineup. I'll be interested to see what Paul Maurice and this coaching staff does in game 3 if Radko Gudas can't play. I'm not certain that Casey Fitzgerald being in the lineup over a guy like Lucas Carlson, who had experience with the Panthers last year in the regular season and the playoffs, and if you remember, is the player who hit me in the neck with a puck last November. He had a phenomenal season in the AHL for the Charlotte Checkers in their playoff run too. I would like to see Lucas Carlson in the lineup over Casey Fitzgerald if it gets to that, if Radko Gudas can't play. But starts with Bob, got to be better there. And they've just got to find a way to be more disciplined. Like, these first 2 games, you can complain about the officiating all you want, but, like, they're calling what they're calling. And while the physicality and the extra scrums, while that is part of this team's identity, like, they're losing board battles and things like that. They haven't been as good on the forecheck. They haven't been able to get to the middle of the ice in the Vegas zone. All things that they've been able to do up until this point has been taken away. And now it just looks like a team that can't hold their composure and flies off the handle when things aren't going their way.
You say Bob has to be better. Paul Maurice was asked if, after he took out Bob, if he'll consider going to Alex Lyon in game 3. My guess is that's not even something he will consider. You can't take Bob out at this stage of the season, right?
No. Like, Bob is your guy. Like, he's 80% of the reason they're in this spot in the first place with the run he had since coming in late in that Boston series. There's no debate. Like, Bob is the starter. I'd imagine that, okay, if they go down 3-0, even then he's still your guy because what are you going to do with your season on the line? You're not going to start Alex Lyon. You're going to start the guy who's got you there. So I can't imagine Alex Lyon starting a game in this series. You just got to hope that Bob gets back to form. Like, people talk, I can't remember if I said this on with you guys, but, people were worried about how the 9-day layoff would affect the skaters. Like, I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about how it would affect a guy like Bob, who has been so streaky in his Panther career and had been playing the best hockey of his career up until that 9-day layoff. And to me, he kind of looks like a guy who had 9 days off. And
lost a little bit of that Kavorka that he had working there for a little bit.
I mean, I can use context clues for Kavorka.
You don't know the Kavorka?
I don't know the Kavorka.
You're not familiar with the Kavorka?
Solana, are you familiar with the Kavorka?
No,
he's not a Seinfeld guy.
I'm not familiar with the Kavorka.
I'm more of a Curb guy than a Seinfeld guy.
All right,
I'll be honest.
fair enough.
Yeah, same.
You sent me something, Appel, about the ratings for the Stanley Cup Final, and what was it? It was highest in what, 10 years, 11 years, something like that.
Let me look at the text.
I'm curious if you think it is the matchup.
So it was. I have the stat here. Sorry to interrupt. Warner Brothers Sports delivers cable's most watched Stanley Cup Final opener in 21 years. Game 1 of Panthers Golden Knights averaged 2.8 million viewers across TNT, TBS, and True TV, up 11% versus the past 5-year average for the Stanley Cup Final viewership from 2017 to 2021. Viewership peaked at 3.3 million total viewers from 10:45 to 11. It was the second most watched Stanley Cup Final Game 1 ever on cable. beat Hurricanes Red Wings 2002.
I mean,
Now,
I
I
wonder,
know
is
it was
it
on
is it
ABC and ESPN last year,
correct?
so that might change. This is like just cable.
Correct. I wonder if there's something to be said for an interest level in two cities that people told us people weren't interested in because they're non-traditional hockey markets, or if it's the great job TNT does because their broadcast is phenomenal.
It's probably a little of this and a little of that. I think that the talk of nobody's like, of course people are going to watch it. It's the final of a major sport in this country that has been gaining a lot of popularity and has some pretty major star power in the Stanley Cup final, especially when it comes to Americans and Jack Eichel and Matthew Tkachuk. People love a Cinderella story. People love a redemption story. Vegas is a really cool market, and they do a great job with everything there. And as you alluded to, the TNT panel, much like they are with the NBA, like they are phenomenal with the NHL. Gretzky, like when Gretzky first started out on TNT, like it just seemed like he was, just there as like, it's Wayne Gretzky. And he never said anything interesting. But for whatever reason, this season, this playoff run, his personality has really shined. He has some really good little one-liners. Was chirping the Maple Leafs after the Panthers beat them because Paul Bissonnette is a big Maple Leafs guy. Henrik Lundqvist has been phenomenal.
He's
and
really interesting.
And he's handsome.
Very handsome man. Would love that head of hair.
Yeah, I mean, well, you and me both. Look, it's a great production that TNT does. And game one was really interesting. It was 2-2 going into the third. So obviously people were going to, tune in for that. And I think I saw that Heat Nuggets was also very well rated numbers wise. Another series that everybody said nobody was going to watch. And it's like, can we stop with that, like in general with these games? Like maybe viewership falls off a little bit, but like,
well,
what do we do?
I was saying to Solana, when it comes to like Heat Nuggets, look, it's the NBA Finals. People are going to watch. First of all, there's like you're going to sit down, you're going to watch because it's the last of the basketball games you're going to see for a while. But you would acknowledge if it was Lakers Celtics, which there was a chance that it would have been, it probably would have been through the roof.
Yeah, but I also don't think people are like not tuning in because it's, what I'm saying? Like it's just maybe those markets would and just general fan bases would have, maybe more interest in it. And the LeBron factor. Like LeBron.
Well,
in the finals.
there's a LeBron factor too. You put
Yeah.
LeBron in any NBA Finals, I would imagine viewership is going to be up. But that doesn't. Again, it's not necessarily meaning that as we've seen today because the NBA Finals ratings were so good. It doesn't matter that I don't know the Heat don't have a superstar, right? That's been although Jimmy Butler's had a great postseason, and I'm not sure how many people love watching Nikola Jokic play. He's not
It's as impressive as it is. It's almost not impressive watching him.
Right. It's so impressive that it becomes not it's like you can't. It's hard to rationalize what you're watching when he's doing everything. When he's making Magic Johnson passes, and it really is hard to come to grips with it.
He had the one touch pass with one hand down to, I think it was Jamal Murray in game 2. And I'm like,
that was unbelievable. That was a Magic Johnson pass. It was unbelievable.
And totally unimpressive.
Right. Because he does it looking like he should be wearing flip-flops.
Like if I was 7 foot, whatever he is. That's
you think who do you think wins that series? Heat or Nuggets?
I'm going to come on here and say the Nuggets are going to win the series? No, of course I think the Heat are going to win.
Listen, be honest to yourself. You're a broadcaster. You're a national broadcaster with some modicum of respect.
I think ultimately the Nugget, like, I don't know how you play defense against them over the course of a 7-game series. And I don't know if the Heat can shoot as well as they did in game 2 to win 4 games out of 7 against this team. Not to say it can't happen. We'll see.
Ooh, wrong take there, Dr. Bell. Wrong take. You're turning into Mario Chalmers all of a sudden. I mean, the first Rio jumped ship, now Appel jumped ship.
Why did Rio jump ship?
He kind of did. He said he thinks the series. People were very upset with Mario Chalmers right now on social media. He said that he can see the series going 7, and just because of that, he gives the upper hand to Denver. They're the home team, but we all saw what the Heat did in Game 7 in Boston, and he called himself Heat Nation. He says, I almost never pick against the Heat, but he gave the upper hand to Denver simply because they'll have home court in Game 7.
Kind of seems like that's what I said.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you're not Mario Chalmers. You're not a two-time
that's-
NBA champion with the Miami Heat.
But I mean, it's not. I
Fair.
mean, that's not like a damning take where you go, oh, I mean, how many times have we heard on the broadcast, the Nuggets are just better. They're just flat out better. And if they don't win, it means the worst team won, which is a mind-boggling take. That's not that. Like, that's like, hey, I think it's going to be a long series, good series, and I'll give the nod to the home team in Game 7.
But the headline was Mario Chalmers thinks the Nuggets are going to win the NBA Finals, which is what everybody reads. Nobody's actually clicking the article and reading what he actually said. So people were upset with Mario Chalmers. Appel, if Luis Arraez hits over 400 for the season, which I know it seems like that is impossible because he's at 399 right now, will you join me in the fight to bring back the home run sculpture?
It's not gone.
Yeah, but put it back in the stadium. Let's bring it back into Lone Depot Park.
No.
Well, another wrong answer by Josh Appel. We love that home run
answer.
sculpture.
We still hit the button when we hit a home run. It still goes
that thing
off.
still goes off when there's a home run?
Every day at 3:05, and we hit the button when someone hits a home run.
I didn't realize that thing still. So if you don't have tickets, say, and you're watching from outside, is that why is it going off?
Brian, because exactly the Marlins hit a home run.
Huh.
What about like a home run sculpture cam?
That's what I was just thinking. One scoreboard dedicated solely to watching the home run sculpture outside the ballpark.
That's certainly a lot more plausible than putting it back in the stadium. I don't think people realize the Marlins legitimately have Tony Gwynn in their lineup every night.
Like, no. It's really like they're getting overshadowed, as they should be, by the way, by the Panthers and the Heat because they're playing in the finals. But what Luis Arraez is doing is nothing short. And again, it's June. If he's still hitting at these numbers in August, then you've got a national story. But what he's doing is pretty remarkable.
There's been like 3 or 4 guys ever who have been like around this at this point in the season or somewhere in that. Not a lot of guys are doing this.
No, he's top 10 first 61 games. I have the numbers here. Since 1941, first 61 games, highest batting average for any player, and he's up there. You mentioned Tony Gwynn was at 405. He's at 399 right now. Ted Williams, Tony Gwynn, Stan Musial, Rod Carew, Chipper Jones,
Musial.
Stan Musial.
Stan Musial is one of the greatest baseball players in the history of the game.
Right, that's why I mentioned him, Stan Musial.
And I mean, that would be like saying Hank Aaron. Stan Musial. Len has to come in there. Len is just a puddle of tears right now. Stan Musial. He is honestly one of the greatest baseball players to ever play the game, and it's not Stan Musial. And we're going to have to end on that note. Josh Appel, Marlins public address announcer. That was truly delightful. And sounds like something you would take if you were stuffed up. Hey, did you take any Stan Musial?
Can I derail the show for 1 second before I leave?
I mean,
literally
1 second.
Yeah, quick congratulations. I know Canes baseball lost, but there's another team you can root for in college baseball and super regionals onto the College World Series. Mark Kingston, South Carolina, big Dolphins fan, listens to the show as well. Used to coach at UM, so congratulations to the Gamecocks. Sorry for derailing the show.
I'll give you that. Josh Appel, you'll hear him. Are you going to the Marlins game tonight? You'll hear him. Give us a little Luis Arraez coming to the plate. Give us Stan Musial coming to the plate.
Leading off for the Marlins, Stan Musial.
Musial. That's really amazing. Someone send this to Peter Gammons, please. Someone please send this to Bob Costas. All right. Thank you, Appel.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
There you go. Josh Appel. That was delightful.
Why didn't I just stop at Ted Williams?
I know. You're killing yourself on that one. Musial.